Today, I'll be telling you all the blocks you will need to know to create a good route in Trackmania. I hope you enjoy. Last episode, I went over all the blocks in folder 1, so check that out if you have not seen it yet. Folder 2 contains the open blocks. The main difference between these blocks and the ones in the previous folder are that you can make them wider by placing next to each other, and they do not have stripes. There are 5 folders. Folder 1 would be concrete, and then dirt, ice, grass and plastic. All 5 of these folders contain the same blocks, but they're just different surfaces. Folder 1 in any of these folders contain the flat blocks. In the first folder in this there are 3 blocks. Block 1 is a very useful block. It fills the entire square with the block, and it can be used in loads of different places. Block 2 is similar to block 1, but has a large hole in the middle. Block 3 is half of block 1, so you'll use this whilst making things like turns. The next folder contains narrow turns. They are similar to turns in the roads, but they do not have walls. They come in 5 blocks, each increasing in size. The blocks in folder 3 are for the outsides of turns. These can be used for wider turns. There are 2 blocks, and the second block is larger than the first. Folder 4 is similar to the previous folder, but you can use it for the inside of turns. There are 2 blocks, with the second one larger than the first. The blocks in folder 5 connect wide roads to normal roads. They have a yellow stripe on one of their ends. There are 3 blocks in this folder. The first one connects to normal straight roads, and blocks 2 and 3 connects it to angle roads. So block 2 connects it to yellow surrounded by white, and block 3 connects it to blocks with yellow surrounded by black. You don't have to use this folder if you're connecting wide roads to normal roads. The next folder connects blocks from this folder to lower level blocks. Lower level blocks are like blocks in folder 7 that are black surface, folders 4-2 which is wood, and the stadium floor. Folder 7 contain upside down blocks. They are blocks 1 and 3 from the first folder, but upside down. You'll mainly use these when making full speed or reactor maps. The blocks in folder 2 can act as both uphill and downhill, and also tilted blocks, depending on which way you drive on them. There'll be blocks suited to either way. Folder 1 contains smaller ramps. A ramp is when you start flat and end flat, but there's elevation during the block. These are commonly used for jumps or transitions. Block 1 is a normal ramp on a straight. Block 2 and 3 are ramps and turns. 2 has the lowest part of the ramp being on the outside, whilst 3 has the highest part of the ramp being on the outside. There are 2 variants of both these. Block 1 is a normal block, whereas block 2 has a road on the bottom, so you can connect it to other parts of the track. Folder 2 also contains ramps, but they are steeper as they rise by 2 scrolls rather than just 1. The next folder contains everything you need to make a straight on an uphill. So, block 1 is a normal road that is going uphill, but you can also drive it downhill. Block 2 is very similar to block 1, where there's a hole in it. Block 3 will start an uphill or end a downhill, and block 4 will end an uphill or start a downhill. Folder 4 will make an uphill into a downhill and a downhill into an uphill. Block 1 will be at the top of an uphill and turn it into a downhill. Block 2 and 3 will be at the bottom of downhills and turn them into uphills. The only difference between them is that block 3 can go into the stadium floor. Folder 5 contains half of an uphill or downhill block, so you can use this whilst turning on an uphill and downhill into what would be the equivalent of a tilted block. Folder 6 are turns. You'll most likely drive this whilst driving on the tilted side, where you can use it whilst on an uphill. There are 3 blocks, each of them are increasing in size. Folder 7 is very similar to the previous one, but rather than the turns turning in on themselves, they turn out of themselves. There are 3 blocks, each of them increasing with size. Folder 8 connects these blocks to flat blocks, so with this folder the flat block is lower. There are 4 blocks, 2 for each direction and 2 for each different length. Folder 9 is similar to the previous folder, but the flat part is higher. The blocks are in the same order. The next folder contains the quarter pipe blocks. Block 1 in the first folder is a quarter pipe. It connects a flat road to the quarter pipe. Block 2 is similar to the last one, but it's for uphills or tilted blocks. Blocks 3 and 5 are turns on the quarter pipes that go into themselves. Each one is increasing in size. Blocks 6 to 9 are turns that go out of themselves. They also increase in size. Folder 2 is inverse of the previous one, as the top part is flat rather than the bottom. You'll normally use these as a transition or for the outside of the turn. Block 1 is straight, whilst blocks 2 and 4 would be for the outside of a turn, with each one increasing in size. Blocks 5 and 7 would be the inside of a turn. Again, they both all increase in size. The blocks in folder 3 take your car upside down. You'll use it a lot when making full speed maps. Block 1 will do this whilst in a straight, and blocks 2 to 4 will do this whilst turning into themselves. They are commonly used in full speed maps. Block 5 and 8 are similar to the previous ones, but they turn out of themselves. It is very uncommon for these to be used. The next folder is similar to straight blocks, but they are on their sides. Block 1 is a normal block, but block 2 would be the straight hole with a hole in it, and block 3 is a smaller version of the normal block. You will commonly use these in wall rides. Block 5 is similar to block 1 of the previous folder, but half of it. There are 4 blocks, for the different angles you can place them at. The blocks in folder 6 are used for wall rides. Block 1 to 3 are the same size as block 1 from folder 4. They decrease in size as you go on. Blocks 4 to 6 are the same size as block 3 in folder 4. They also decrease in size as you go on. You'll drive on these whilst on your side, and they're commonly used in full speed maps. Folder 7 is similar to the previous one, but the blocks go out of themselves. Blocks 4 to 8 are smaller than blocks 1 to 3, and most of these blocks are used in scenery. Folder 4 contains start, finish, checkpoints, and multi-lap blocks. The first folder in this contains the checkpoint blocks. Block 1 is a checkpoint on flat road. Block 2 and 3 are on ramps, and they'll be used whilst either going uphill or downhill. Blocks 4 and 5 are also on ramps, but you use them whilst driving along them, so whilst you're tilted. The next folder is checkpoints which are on quarter pipes, the things we saw in the previous folder. There are 4 blocks for all different orientations you can place them. You'll use these checkpoints in this folder way less than in the previous one. Folder 3 contains the start, finish, and multi-lap blocks. The start is where the player will start, and you can only have one of these blocks per map, that's block 1. The second block is where the player finishes, so they have to go through all the checkpoints and then pass through this to finish the map, and you can have as many of these as you want on your map. Block 3 is a multi-lap. It is when the player will drive a large circuit, and the start and finish are at the same place, so it's sort of like an F1 track. To have a multi-lap block, you must have at least one checkpoint. You can change the amount of laps you have by going to the screwdriver button, clicking set map type, and then changing the number in number of laps. The next folder contains booster blocks. They'll give you a speed boost when you drive over them. Block 1 in all folders is a normal booster. It will give you a normal size speed boost. Block 2 is a super booster. It will give you a larger speed boost than the previous one. Block 3 is a roulette booster. It will give you a different speed boost depending on which colour it is when you drive on it. Block 4 is a react boost. Depending on which way you drive over it, you will either get react boost up or down. React boost up will hover your car above the ground, whilst react boost down will pull your car into the direction your floor is. So if you're driving normally, you'll be pulled onto the surface, but if you're driving upside down, for instance, you'll start going to fly. Block 5 is a super react boost. This is similar to the previous block, but is more powerful. Folder 1 is a flat road, and all 5 blocks are the blocks I mentioned before in the order I mentioned them. Folder 2 is if you are driving on an uphill, and folder 3 is for if you're driving on a downhill. Folder 4 and 5 is for when you're driving on a tilted road, and the only difference between them is that they go in different directions. The next folder contains special effects blocks. There are 7 blocks giving different effects. So, block 1 in all the folders will be a cruise control, which will limit your max speed at whatever speed you are currently at. Block 2 is a no brakes block, and it will disable your brakes. Block 3 is a no engine and will turn off your engine, whilst block 4 is a no steer and will turn off your steering. Block 5 is a slow motion block, and it will make the game go in slow motion, but the time will remain normal. Block 6 is a fragile, and this will damage your car if you crash. Block 7 is a reset block, and it will get rid of any special effect you had. Also, if you had a reactive boost, it will get rid of that. There are 3 folders. Folder 1 is for flat road, whilst folder 2 is for up or down hills, and folder 3 is for when you're driving on tilted roads. Folder 3 contains paths. This is when you have a small path surrounded by a penalty surface. The concrete and grass paths are surrounded by penalty grass. Dirt is surrounded by sand and ice is surrounded by snow. All 4 folders contain the same blocks, just with different surfaces. This contains all the normal blocks, and this is the main folder you will use whilst mapping with paths, especially if you're new to mapping. Folder 3, and then any of these folders, 1-1, contains straight paths. There are 3 blocks. One is for flat, and then block 2 is for up or down hills, and block 3 is for tilted blocks. The next folder contains small turns. Block 1 is a small turn on a flat, and block 2 to 5 are for making an uphill or downhill into a tinted road, or the other way around, and there are 4 blocks for all the different orientations. The next folder is similar to the previous one, but instead of all the blocks being 1 by 1, they are 2 by 2. The blocks are also in the same order as the previous one. Folder 4 contains everything else you need for up or down hills. So block 1 and 2 are ramps, which is when it starts flat and ends flat. The first one is steeper than the second. Block 3 is a block you'll use to start an uphill or end a downhill, whilst block 4 is used to end an uphill or start a downhill. Block 5 turns a downhill into an uphill. You can also use it to jump if none of the other blocks give the right height. And blocks 6 and 7 turn a downhill into an uphill, with 7 being able to go into the stadium floor. The next folder contains checkpoints. So block 1 is for a flat road, whilst block 2 is for an uphill and block 3 is for a downhill. Block 4 and 5 are for tilted roads, with each facing the opposite direction from each other. The next folder can make the transitions from normal open blocks to paths more aesthetically pleasing. The blocks in the first folder are needed to do this transition on a straight. So block 1 is if you're on a straight which is flat, whilst block 2 and 3 can be used for uphills or downhills, and blocks 4 and 5 are if you are tilted. The next folder contains blocks that will help you if one of your sides is already in a path but the other side needs to become a path. So you'll use this if you're turning into the path, and the block order is the same as before. The next folder is similar to the previous one, just that the side that's already a path and the one that has to be a path is switched. Folder 4 takes an open block to a path, but instead of just using the end like folder 1 does, it uses the entire block, and the block order is the same, so block 1 is flat, 2 and 3 are up or down hills, and 4 and 5 are tilted. Folders 5 and 6 are similar to the previous folder, but instead of it happening on both sides, it's only happening on one side. So the different folders are for the different sides of roads, and this can help you in case like you say for instance wanted to have one side being a penalty area for scenery, and the blocks are in the usual order. Folders 7 and 8 turn a block that's got one path on one side to being completely penalty surface. So there are 2 folders for the different sides of roads, and the blocks are in the same order as the other blocks before. The next folder contains blocks you will use if you want to make your path larger. The blocks all have one side open road and the other side being a penalty surface. You can use this for open block section with one side being penalty, which will help with scenery, or if you want your path to be larger, you can put 2 of these blocks with penalty surfaces either side. The first folder has one side being penalty surface and the other being open, so there are 5 blocks. Block 1 is flat road. If you want to change which side the penalty is on, just rotate the block. Block 2 and 3 are for up or down hills, with each having the block of grass on either side, and block 4 and 5 are for tilted, with the only difference being which side the grass is on. The next folder contains a small penalty turn on both sides of the road. This will change the direction that the penalty grass goes. This is commonly used with open blocks, just to slightly shorten the path and force the players to realign their car. So block 1 is flat, whilst block 2 and 3 can be used for either uphills or downhills, or tilted depending on which way you place it. The next folder is similar to the previous one, but only one side turns. If you use this, you can change the distance between the penalty surface. There are 5 blocks. Block 1 is for flat, whilst blocks 2 to 5 are for uphills or downhills, or tilted depending on which way you rotate it. For folder 4, you will use these blocks when you're making a turn, and they'll be on the inside of the turn. There will be 5 blocks. Block 1 is flat, whilst block 2 to 5 are changing it from up to or down hills to tilted, and vice versa. The next folder will be used on the outside of turns, and you'll use them when you're at lower speeds. There are 5 blocks. Block 1 is for flat turns, whilst block 2 to 5 are turns which take from up or downhill to tilted and vice versa. The next folder is similar to the last one, but is larger, and you'll use them when you're at higher speeds. There are also 5 blocks, with 1 for flat and 2 to 5 being uphill or downhill to tilted and the other way around. Folders 7 and 8 are ramps with grass on either one of the sides. The difference between the folders is which side the grass is on. Block 1 and 2 are ramps which start flat and end flat. Block 1 is steeper than 2, and block 3 is used for starting up and ending downhill, whilst block 4 is for ending an uphill or starting downhill. You can place blocks 2 or 3 from the first folder to extend the ramp. The next folder contains blocks that will turn uphills to downhills and downhills to uphills, with penalty on one of the sides. So block 1 turns an uphill into a downhill, and block 2 and 3 turn downhills into uphills, with block 3 being able to go into the stadium floor. Folder 4 contains blocks that are mainly grass, but have small bits of path on it, so this one is mainly used in scenery. Folders 1 and 3 are practically only used in scenery, and have blocks that are very similar to them, which are in other folders. So, for instance, in folder 1, you can substitute it with folder 5 and then any of them for 1, which is nearly the same and use way more. And for folder 3, you can substitute it with 5 any folder 4, 3, 2. I'll go over both of these in the scenery part of the series. Folder 2 is the only one you'll really use in your route, and it still won't be used a lot. So it's the inside of the turn with the grass going upwards, similar to a ramp, and it operates like a normal turn block, just that if you go too wide, you'll hit penalty grass rather than, say for instance, falling off or crashing into a wall. There's only one block in this folder. Now we finish all the blocks in folder 2 and 3. There are 2 more episodes until you know all of the blocks for your route. Anyway, remember to like and subscribe so you can catch those 2 episodes, and I'll see you later. Bye!